I'm joined now by Coach Greg Hollifield of the Sikeston Bulldogs. Coach, thanks for taking a minute to talk with us.
Yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and, Coach, to be honest, I've lost count. You guys have been to the Final Four so many times now. How many trips does this make for you?
For our program, it's 6. I've been here 20 years, and we've been 5 times, 5 in the past 13 seasons. So, we've been fortunate to have some great kids that have worked hard, and I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, and, it's amazing because you and I have known each other a long time, and I've been an admirer of yours for a long time. And I was talking to a coach from a Class 5 school just last week, and I know they're kind of going through a little bit of a transition right now with their players, and he's coming to grips with, he come from a small school background, like you're from Siemens Hornersville, grew up at Siemens Hornersville, actually won a state title as a baseball coach at Siemens Hornersville. And so you're one of the rare coaches that's won a state title in more than one sport. But he's coming to grips with what you came to grips with there at Sikeston, where you had one style that you were used to playing, and you completely did a 180, in my opinion, and did it masterfully with changing your whole style with the pressing and the up-tempo and everything than what you maybe did the first couple of years you were at Sikeston. So you and I have talked about this before, so I already know what you're going to say. But for the people out there that have never heard you explain it before, just kind of talk about what led you to that decision.
Well, it's in our area, especially southeast Missouri, I was always a big admirer of Ronnie Cookson, Scott Central, the up-tempo. But personally, I always played half-court man and, some full-court man pressure. But, we were a slower tempo team. And, I just decided at the start of the 2007 season that we were going to completely change and try to press every possession and try to put as much ball pressure as we could to create points off turnovers, try to get just things going in that direction where we're just up and down. And I'll say this, our players have absolutely bought in. They love it, and it's such a fun way to play. And it's one of those things that I was a big fan of Rick Pitino, and, he always played that style. And, just always sitting there and admiring that system and style. Our kids, we went in with this plan, and I said, I'm going to stick with it. It's what we're going to do. And the first year I was hesitant. I was somewhat back and forth. But, over the past 10 or 11 years, we have completely bought into the system and play it every day, drill work it every day. And I think it's been great for our program, our team, and our kids.
Yeah, and, it's funny that you say that because when you look at it's like you said, it's not only the buy-in, but it's sticking with it, And I know I've talked with different coaches, and this particular coach that I talked to last week, that's always the hurdle that they have to cross is maybe embracing something that you're not as familiar with. But I know that you had mentioned to me at one point, like your school. I remember when you first got to Sikeston, especially, they were really good at football. And so you were getting your players so late. And you said, one benefit to this was just the continuity maybe from year to year. Your kids, I know, and you do this in junior high also, they start out playing one way and they get really good at it by the time they get to you. So maybe talk a little bit about some of those coaches in your feeder system.
Oh, absolutely. And it's all about your feeder system. And, shockingly enough, I've been here 20 years, and my assistant coach is Brian James. He's been with me 20 of those. Chris Sarakis has been with me, another assistant, 19. He's my freshman coach. And then Derek James, he's been with me 10 years. And now Will Hollifield, he's my 7th grade coach, and he's been with me forever. So he's been around our program, since we started all of this. And it's, in my opinion, schools, if you look at successful programs, it's guys that have been there for a while. If you go into a school, it's going to take 3 to 5 years to build your program.
That's
you have
right.
to start within your feeder system. You have to get your players have to believe in what you're doing. It just takes plenty of time to do that. And so many times you'll see guys that are at a school for 2, 3, 4 years and they move on. Well, that's difficult. And I was one of those guys. When I got here, I said, I'm going to make a commitment here. I'm going to stay here. We're going to do everything we can to build our program. And it just takes time. And so many times you see maybe administration they get impatient with coaches, or coaches, they get impatient with the situation where they're coaching, and you just have to stick with it and stay with it. And, I've been very fortunate here. I've had great people to work with, and, they've done everything they could possibly do to help us build our program. But, I totally agree. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes a complete system. It starts at that lower level, and, I've always been a believer, and I have this everywhere. Winning breeds winning. Fortunately, so does losing. So, we really try to be positive, keep our guys in a direction of. I played for a great high school basketball coach in Randy Benson, who's in the Missouri Basketball Hall of Fame, and he was one of those guys you could not wait to get to practice. And I hope to think our guys feel the same way. I hope they're looking forward to getting into practice, and it's not something they dread, and it's something they want to do.
That's a fabulous point. And, you talk about winning breeds winning and how you built this program up. I was explaining to somebody, I'm not kicking dirt on Dexter at all. Josh Dowdy's doing a great job at Dexter. They're pointed in the right direction. But, for the last several years, Dexter hasn't been, and you remember this, as dominant as they were back in the Paul Hale years. And I was explaining to somebody, I said, I can remember when I first started coaching, you guys were on the way up. You had a good program, but you're nowhere near where you're at now. And Dexter was the number one team in the state at that class. Like, Dexter was the dominant team in the area for that class. And, people now, especially young coaches or young players, if they look around the area, they may not realize that. But when you had a Paul Hale who was there in one place, installing one system, his kids were used to playing it. And I, the point that I was making to this younger coach was it can happen anywhere. If
Absolutely.
You're willing to get in there and put that time in, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah, and I agree. Coach Dowdy he's done a great job, and we coached against him, and he's got that program headed in the right direction. What a great job he's done. But prior to that, years ago, Paul Hale had just great teams.
Great teams. Yeah,
Dexter, Notre Dame, and one of those things again. And you coach against these guys enough. Coach Narrett, Borgia, we coached against those guys for a number of years, and they all played the pressing matchup zone style of game, and they were so difficult to go against. And you had Coach Cookson at Scott Central pressing and, matching up every possession. And those three guys had a big influence on the direction in which I switched into this system, because there was nothing fun about going against those great Borgia teams. They were always matching up with you, their defense, pressing, pushing the ball, offensive transition. Same thing with Coach Hale. Very, very similar systems. And my philosophy has always been you try to make teams play a style they're not used to practicing. And, we're out there pressing and working on our zone every single day. And, if teams, back when I played man-to-man defense, we're going to play a team that is a zone team, we would spend time on it, but not near as much time as that team that's playing that zone spending. And it's very difficult to go against.
And that's what Coach Cook, I played for Coach Cookson, and he used to always say that. It's just one more thing they have to prepare for.
I agree.
Like we can always take our press, and like I remember we played Antonio Sykes, the great guard from Portersville. You remember him. That guy was phenomenal. And he would tell us in the press, as soon as Antonio catches it, start running backwards. Like, you're not going to press this guy, but let's at least make him think that we're pressing, so that it's just one more thing they have to prepare for. In other words, you can always back up. But if you're not used to going forward, it's really hard to do that, just on a dime. And so
I totally agree.
To your point, your kids are always in that attack mode. And speaking of which, I caught your game Saturday. You guys just completely demolished St. Mary's, who arguably is one of the best teams in the entire state in any class. I mean, they are a phenomenal team, phenomenal talent. And I think a lot of people from southeast Missouri and really around the state felt like, St. Mary's or Vashon, St. Mary's or Vashon. Who's going to win that game? That's probably going to be the team that goes on in Class 4. Well, St. Mary's just crushes Vashon, and then you guys turn around and beat them. And I was watching the game with Toby. We were sitting in the hotel watching it on the internet. And, I mean, you guys played so well in that game. So just how did you guys get up for that, and did you anticipate that outcome?
Well, we knew how good St. Mary's was, and, it's one of those things, again, experience, and the last two seasons, we took Vashon to overtime in the Final Four 2 years ago and was so close, a free throw here, and who knows what could happen. And then last season, I thought we played Vashon very well in the quarterfinal game. We were up at one time, I think, 14 points and ended up losing in a fairly close game. And, we have a lot of kids that played on that team. I mean, Fred Thatch, Kevin Jones, Trey Jenkins, these are guys that are 3-year starters for us. Fred's a 4-year starter, and they've been in those big game situations before. And, they had the ultimate respect for St. Mary's. They knew how good they were, but they came in every day to prepare. And, we believed in ourselves, and we knew how difficult a game it was going to be. But, we had guys that were, veteran basketball players that have been in big games. And fortunately, things just went our way. One of those days where things just went our way.
And you mentioned Fred, and I was watching the game, and, I said, Fred, it just was a total demonstration. He only scored 12 points. To some people, they may go, just look at the box score. He just had an okay game, but he had 22 rebounds. But he handled the ball against their pressure. He helped you bust the pressure. Defensively, he's your anchor. That was and if you just had a one-game time capsule game, that is the greatness of Fred Thatch as a high school player, that one game. Like, wow. I mean, the guy just did everything. So tell me a good Fred Thatch story for people out there that may not be as familiar with just how great a player he is.
Well, first of all, he's a great guy, and he comes in every day with a smile on his face. I've never once, I've coached him for 4 years. He's been in my locker room since he was in the 3rd grade. Everywhere we would go, he was with us. I've never seen that guy in a bad mood.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, he's a winner. And SLU, they're getting a winner. And I've often wondered, you watch these colleges, I know they get hung up into the talent level, this and that, but why not recruit winners and great guys? And at the end of the day, I think it'll pay off. And to me, that's how you would build your program. Maybe I know nothing about the recruiting situation, but in my opinion, Fred Thatch, he has winning qualities. I always say he has winning dripping off of him. He's that type of guy that makes every teammate better. And that's as big a compliment as I can give him. He's a very unselfish player. He's a very unselfish person. And at the end of the day, SLU, I think they're just going to love having this guy in practice every day. He's 6'2" or 3, but as you said, I've watched this guy against Vashon going up against 6'8", 6'9", and rebounding with anybody. I mean, he can just play. He's a player. Yeah,
I call those guys winning players. There are just some guys that are just, you need guys like that on your team if you're going to win. I've coached guys who had a lot of talent who they were not a winning player. They were born with a certain ability level that, whether they didn't just love the game, they only liked it, or whether they were a little more selfish, like you said. But there are those guys, and when you coach them, he's just a winner. He's a winner. And you can, it just jumps off. Every time I've watched Fred play, I've always left feeling like, hey, I got my money's worth. That guy, he's just a winner. I mean, like you said. And so looking ahead, I mean, you got a big weekend coming up. What's your anticipation for the games coming up this weekend and who you've got to play?
Well, we've had an opportunity to look at Grandview, and I think they're outstanding. I mean, their personnel is great. They're very well coached. They play a very similar style that we do. I mean, if fans want to see a exciting game, I think Friday, you talk about an up-and-down affair. I think both teams play very similar styles. Their personnel is outstanding, and we know it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, and just for fans of basketball, I mean, you're coming up there. You've got Rockbridge. You've got Hazelwood, the Class 5 schools, Webster Groves and the Class 5. You've got you guys and like you said, the Grandviews. I mean, there is going to be some serious basketball played in Springfield, Missouri this weekend.
Yeah, I think there's great matchups. I think people, if you're around the area, you need to come in because it'll be up and down. We played Chaminade. We saw Webster Groves earlier in the season in a jamboree, and these guys are, just quality teams from top to bottom.
Who do you think the best player that you guys, I know you played Watson. I got to see your kids play the day you played Whitfield. Who's the best player you guys went up against this year in your opinion?
Well, Watson's awfully good. I think the Helms from Chaminade, impressive. He has a very poised way about him. North Carolina State's getting a great player. Of course, you got Rainey and you've got Gordon from Webster Groves. There's so many good players in the state of Missouri right now, and we've been fortunate to play against some of them, and it's just, again, if you're at the Final Four, if you're in the Springfield area, you need to go by and check some of these guys out because outstanding teams, outstanding players, and it should be fun.
Yeah, that's right. And you guys just continue to be one of those teams every year also. And I've known you since before you were the Hall of Famer, Greg Hollifield, but I'm not surprised at all at the job that you continue to do. And so I appreciate you taking a minute to talk to us.
Well, I appreciate it, David. I've had great players that have really bought in and worked hard, and Sikeston's been a great fit for me. And, I hope we can play well this weekend and, have a good showing.
All right. Well, we're rooting for you, Coach, and good luck, and hopefully we can do this again.
I appreciate it, David. Thank you.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.